lot of story in the game, but it's not like a branching narrative. You don't really get to influence the plot so much as you're on a railroad. You are literally playing a single player game, but in a multiplayer environment. And I know that's a bit of a contradiction in terms, but it's the truth. What I want to talk about is the story beats versus the lore dumps. A lore dump would be something like you get when you unlock a lore tab or a page in the library. Uh, that kind of thing that goes on there, as opposed to like a story beat like this one. Now, this is what I qualify as a story beat. Banshee 44 takes your delicate tune, he says, but his mechanical brow furrows. Because don't forget, even though Exos are robots, they have a human personality in them. Touching that weapon again, I don't know why, but I don't feel good about making it stronger. He hands you the gun, but as you take it, he holds his grip for a moment and looks into your eyes. I know you can handle anything, Guardian, but some things might be better forgotten. This is cool because it's already been established that Banshee was an avatar of Clovis had used during his time in the Golden Age, and a little bit, apparently a little bit afterwards as well. Now, the fact that Banshee is a 44, that means that his mind has apparently been wiped and rewritten 44 times. Text and all that stuff that you can erase the hard drive, but there will always be artifacts on there that you can then rebuild. Short of like microwaving it, which I don't know how they rewrite exobrains. I don't know if they're microwaved or not, but that would mean destroying the entire personality, which is kind of counterproductive to the whole point of making an exo. You could just make a frame. The whole point of making an exo is to have the expertise and experience of the human personality within the augmented cybernetic form of the body. Which begs the question, are there organic parts in an exo? That's hard to say. Anyway, upgrade this weapon to a masterwork. Once upgraded, the weapon will obtain enhanced capability. Blah, blah, blah. Defeat targets using this weapon to unlock this upgrade. Blah, 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 blah. Collecting an ionic trace partially reloads the magazine from reserves. Blah, 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 blah. So it gets basically a sort of an ad hoc um, subsistence kind of thing to it. But yeah, so how much of the game is lore dump versus how much of the game is story beats and stuff like that. When you go through the narrative in the game's seasons, you get story beats, but then you get these things like the lore dumps. This is what I'm talking about. So I mean, how do you want to consume your story in the game? Do you want to go by lore dump, where you can just go into this library and just like collect all this stuff in here and read through it and things like that? Do you prefer your story that way, or do you like the little story beats, the organic deposition of narrative as you play through the game? I like story beats because it makes me feel more interactive with the scenarios uh, in the environment. It suspends that disbelief that this is a fiction, this is a fantasy, this is not a reality of any kind. I mean, for one thing, when I jump, I don't float. In the real world, when I jump, I go up and down. Um, some games emulate that, but Bungie has always had that nice floaty kind of directional kind of jumping where you can actually jump and then turn yourself and strafe in weird ways. Um, because it is a fantasy world, and we are trying to do something in the game that is not something you could do in the real world, which is why we play the game, because it's fun. Anyway, that's all I kind of wanted to really share. Just ask a question out there. Do you prefer the lore dump or do you prefer the story beat? Would Destiny be a better game if you actually have a branching narrative where the choices you make have a direct impact on further chapters in the game? Could you do something like that in a multiplayer game? I know it's been done in Elder Scrolls because I've actually encountered it at least a half a dozen different times where saving the life of an NPC has a direct effect on future missions involving that NPC's collective. In Destiny, there was something similar to that. Is that if you save the captain in this one strike versus if you chose to fight with the captain against the knight, then a certain thing happened later on where the Outbreak Perfected was able to you got help while you were doing the Outbreak Perfected missions. Whereas if you chose to fight against the captain, and take him down, that you weren't able to get a certain level level of help or something like that. But again, it wasn't significant. It didn't actually steer the plot anywhere differently. It would be interesting to see if there was, a way to get this game to a point where you could have alternate endings, but still have a multiplayer kind of experience. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Which is why I keep saying that if Destiny ever made a single player game that was not dependent on being connected to the internet with any services or whatever, I would buy it, and I would buy every expansion for it. I really would. I would buy every cosmetic for it. I would totally go full on into it because I do enjoy Bungie games. I started playing Bungie games back in the time when they had a single player offline game called Oni, which was basically a Ghost in the Shell knockoff, and in my opinion, a far better interpretation of the Ghost in the Shell world than the actual Ghost in the Shell games. Um, and then, of course, after that, I got into Halo, um, and really, I mean, I enjoyed Halo all the way up to the Fall of Reach, and afterwards, kind of got burnt out a little bit about it. But I went back to playing with PlayStation games for various other reasons. Um, but so yeah, that's about it. Thanks for stopping by, and enjoy. Right? That's the point, isn't it?